What is going on, everybody? Man Cave Sports back with another edition of Hungry Like the Wolves. Have the Fab Five here, even though that was taken many years ago by the Michigan Wolverines. But this is the Man Cave edition of the Fab Five. All of our Timberwolves personalities here at the same time, which is always great. Good to see you back, Brett. And we will start out a lot of things we can talk about with the Timberwolves since we last met last Thursday, I believe it was. We'll get into the games and whatnot here shortly enough, but we're going to start out talking about last Friday's game where Chris Finch decided to start Joe Ingles. And I'm sure if you are a Timberwolves fan or even an NBA fan for that matter, you saw the gesture by the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves in regards to Joe Ingles' son, who is autistic, I believe, and the game prior was able to attend and stay and watch his first NBA game front to back, which was a big accomplishment for Joe's son. And upon learning about that, Finchy, as we like to call him affectionately here, which Razor and Brian are huge fans and apologists of him, but it was a great gesture by Mr. Finch to start Joe Ingles. He came out there, had some nice looks, had a couple of shots rattle off, but Timberwolves still came out victorious. I know just from the reports I read and just even seeing the beginning of the game that the teammates were excited for him. They were very approving and happy about this the decision by Finch in the locker room when it was announced a half hour before the game. So, Steve, I'm going to talk to you I'm going to start with you because I know you're a lot harder on Mr. Finch than most of us, myself included. Talk about Joe Ingles. Talk about Joe Ingles' start last Friday and just kind of the feel good story with the Timberwolves there.
Yeah, I'm hard on Finch when it comes to basketball, his rotations and things like that. I don't agree with some of his decisions there. One thing I'll never dog Mr. Finch about though is his care for his players, his care for chemistry, his relationships with his players. I think that's always been obvious, and I think that's a hallmark of him as a coach. Frustratingly so sometimes, I think, with how he works with Randall and stuff. But Mr. Mr. Finch is somebody that definitely genuinely he cares about his players. He cares about, he's a family first kind of guy. And that's the way that I am. So I have 110% total respect for that. And I think this was a fantastic move that they did. Super classy. And I think it was the right thing to do. Not to wander too far here, but that when you've got kids that have, sensory issues, an arena like that is a nightmare for them. You've got yelling, you've got screaming, you've got noise, vibration, colors, all these different things that are triggering for them. So the fact that his son had got to the point where he could stay for a whole game, the last time he tried that, he ended up, they'd had him in a sensory room and, trying to work with him, and he wasn't able to do it. The fact that the Wolves organization and Finch stepped up here and said, we're going to make sure that your son gets to watch you play. 100% totally love it. I will never dog Finch for his relationship with his players. I thought it was fantastic. It was feel good. John Krasinski wrote a fantastic article, kind of chronicling this. So, plug and shout out to him for this. But I thought it was awesome. I loved it. I don't even care if it would have cost us the game. This was the right thing to do, and I'm glad the organization did it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on to that. Ditto. I mean, it's just such a cool move. Really cool for that kid to have the opportunity to, just get through an NBA game because, there's a ton going on, sensory overload going on for a kid in that situation. I completely understand, how that would have been difficult for his entire life up until now. So cool that he got that experience and he's able to kind of check that off of his list, his life bucket list, however you want to put it. Really cool for Joe. Just cool all around. Like I said, I don't have anything else to add to it. he just to see his dad get the intro and whatnot. And I think Joe's probably only going to be here for this year. If he's still even in the NBA next year, he's definitely in the twilight of his career. I think we'll look back fondly at the Joe Ingles era, even though there's not a ton of stat stuffing going on, not a ton of minutes for the guy. But I mean, the inbound specialist in a season where inbounding's been just a oddly frequent issue. Joe's the one guy that can come in there and nail the inbound pass. I think another thing with Joe is the bench vibes are just a huge part of the Wolves culture here. And I think you see a little bit of a shift. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not going to pretend that I know what the conversations are like. But, you see Julius and you see Dante spend a little time on the injury report hanging out on the bench. And, maybe that was part of them coming back with a little bit of a vibe shift. And maybe he's hanging out on Joe's bench was something that had them dialing into the culture a little bit more. So I think we'll tip our cap to Joe when he does depart from Minnesota Timberwolves, but he'll always be a big part of our history. So I'm glad that he got that moment. So that's all I got. Cool stuff.
Razor.
I'll make this quick because Mr. Steve articulated it all beautifully. But class act, class move by the organization, Chris Finch, the players who apparently were extremely excited about the whole idea, Tim Conley as well. And as longtime Timberwolves fans, it's been a hard couple of decades, not just because of the basketball product, but because a lot of the characters that were playing for this organization weren't always easy to cheer for because of some of their off-court behavior, the fact that they didn't seem to really care about the game nor care about each other. And I would say that over the last few years, they've put together a roster of players, coaches, a front office that does seem to care about one another in a cutthroat business. So to see them make a move like this when they're in a fight to make the playoffs was class move, and as Steve said, the right move to make. So good for the Wolves organization.
D Naughty.
This is going to surprise you guys, but I agree 100% with my esteemed colleague Razor Ramon. I mean, you got to love it. Ingles, the Australian assassin, he was huge in Orlando and Utah. I mean, guy knows how to play basketball. And all you got Finchy haters, I'm talking to one person in particular. You can guess who it is. All you people, he's a good guy. He's a family man. Maybe he doesn't get Dilly and TSJ in there as much as you want, but it was absolutely the right and the classy move. Mike?
All right. Now I'm happy we got the positivity out there, which I know Brian is the king of here, as we all know. Not to get into the negative, however, the Timberwolves have lost 3 out of 4 games. We'll talk about the impact in the standings a little bit later, but right now, I just want to talk about the performance overall because I think we hit on it a little bit last week, but as you guys can see, and just even some of the interviews with the players after the games, it just seems like the energy or the sense of urgency is not there. I will say this one thing that and we've hit on the rotations enough on this show, so I'd like to avoid that today. But the turnovers as of late, and especially the ill-timed ones when we're making runs to get back into games, as was the case the other night against the Pacers, I just don't know. And in this late in the season, when these games are so crucial, and between the effort, the starts of the game, and the turnovers right now, I'm just kind of baffled at what's become the last couple of weeks. Steve, I'll go to you because my assumption is you're seeing a lot of the same that I am.
Yeah, the last 4 games we've had the same 2 opponents, right? Pacers and Pelicans. And to only come away with 1 win out of that 4 games is you should have beat the Pelicans at least twice, even if the Pacers, okay, we should have beat them, but the one game it was the G League Pacers, right? I mean, we all were commenting and talking about it where you don't have Halliburton, you don't have Siakam, who I think, I'm not sure if Siakam is Vando's stunt double or Vando is Siakam's stunt double. If you look at those guys, they're almost identical. But the mood, the attitude, just it's not good right now. I think they're down, and I think they got to find a way to win. And I think the turnovers are a symptom of, hockey. They say you're gripping a stick too tight, and you're just not getting it. I think it's a case of people are doing too much. They're getting too. They know that they're missing out on opportunities here, and so I think that Mr. Sticky Fingers has kind of gone back to getting in the middle of the lane and the ball's bouncing all over the place. And you're seeing other guys do the same thing now too. They get in the lane and then they're looking around to try to find, and they're whipping the ball all over the place. The turnovers the other night, like you talked about, against the Pacers was ridiculous. Just one after another. It was it was a comedy of errors. So I think that's just a symptom of kind of where they're at mentally right now. I think that they're in a situation where they're trying too much, too hard, and it's causing them to do things instead of letting the game come to them, rotating the ball. Somebody attacks somebody else. They know where each other's at. They're just all flying around a little bit too much. So it's kind of my 2 cents.
Right.
Yeah, it's just baffling the way that we can go from just humming with ball movement during the 8-game win streak to just looking like they have no idea where to put the ball. Just these like errant, lazy passes. I think one thing that stood out to me in the previous Pacer game, and I admit I turned that game off. I told Mike this via text. Like I was just on that particular night, I had it. I had better use of my time than to watch the same song and dance. The energy just clearly wasn't there. Running the highlights back, it looks like I was spot on by turning that game off. Nothing changed. There was no magical comeback like the OKC game. There's nights where he's going to have to accept that we're better off without Ant. If you're hurt, dude, you're hurt, man. There's nothing heroic about going out there if the product that you're going to put on the court is just shitty. Like, if you're not healthy enough to play well, don't play. Like, we know that like you're this iron warrior that wants to give the fans your all every night, and you're not about the load management. And that is truly a credit to a young player in this era. I do admire that, but there's nothing heroic about putting yourself out on that court if the product that you're going to put out there is going to cost your team possessions and eventually win. So that was kind of the frustrating thing that I took away from Ant going out there with, not 100% of himself, because if he were 100%, we'd see a different product, but hopefully he can get himself up to 100% and heal up, and the rest of these guys can just figure out what's going on and get a better read on these passes. Christian Ponder interceptions just being tossed left and right here. So wow. I'm confident they'll figure it out. I think we'll get there. What this team can do. It's just, will they do it? What version of this team will you get? We've been fighting this battle all year, gentlemen. So I don't want to, fry my brain and trying to dissect things. It's just, hopefully the next 5 games are better than the previous 5 games. That's all I got.
Wow. Wow. Poor Christian Ponder hasn't been in for like 10 years, and we're still slinging mud at him. I like it, Brett. I like it. I like the reference, man. I know B Naughty appreciates that one as well.
I laughed.
All right, Razor, what you got?
We've basically rewound back to the team that they were 2 years ago. Make a big trade in the offseason. You come out, and the vibe or the question is all about, well, can they coexist? Can they find chemistry on the court? But I think the real issue, and those are viable issues, those are issues, but where's the focus? It just doesn't last. It never lasts for this team, especially as we've discussed all season, when they play injury depleted teams or perceived lesser opponents. They don't focus, and they expect to come back late, that they can just turn it on when it counts. And they're just not a good enough team to do that. They did it against Indiana the first time. First half, they had nothing. In the first half, they turned it up in the second half, but it wasn't enough. Obi Toppin and others had already found their rhythm and did hit some crazy shots to win the game. But looking at the box score for this last Indiana game, it looks like the Wolves, they didn't come out exactly guns blazing, but coming out of the half, they gave up 41 points in the third quarter. And again, this team just doesn't seem to be able to play a complete game consistently. And I mean, even a couple weeks ago when the vibes were good, they beat Orlando. I mean, they were down 11 in the fourth quarter and had to storm back to win that game. And it just, I feel like maybe they're a little too cocky and they just believe, oh, we can just turn it up and we'll make a comeback when we're ready. Like they've already accomplished something. And it's very frustrating. And but that said, give it another week and the vibes might be great again because that's what's been happening all season long.
It's been a grind.
Yes.
Brian.
Absolutely. And this is going to shock everybody. I agree full heartedly with my esteemed colleague, Razor Ramon. I'm not going to be fire and brimstone and butterflies, moonbeams, and zebras about what's going on here. It's just like what I said about the Wild. We got to stack some points. We got to figure out a way. And it's a grind, as Michael said. It's just, let's see what happens. I just do not want a play-in game. That's the only thing. Like, we're talking all these different scenarios. The one thing I cannot have, and like my blood pressure, I'm an old man now. You know, I'd be like Red Fox. Elizabeth, I'm coming. Yeah, if we're in a playoff game or play-in game. And that's the only thing I want to avoid. Let's heal up. Let's see what happens. Michael.
How ironic you talk about blood pressure. I had my first physical in a couple of years the other day.
You're old.
Yeah. Well, I am now on. I just took my first blood pressure medication today at my advanced age, but that's all right. You knew eventually the man cave lifestyle would catch up to me. But anyways, just talking, and we'll get into that, the scenarios, who they're going to play, etc. But let's talk a little bit about the movement in the Western Conference now. I know Oklahoma has cinched the 1 seed. You'd think they'd be resting and not concerned, but they seem to be after that 70 win total and the significance of it, which I think only two other teams have done, if I'm not mistaken, the Bulls and then the Warriors. And I watched them last night, and they're resting players where they need to be. Obviously, Chet hasn't been playing as much. He's just coming back from injury, but you got Houston still playing very well at that 2 seed. You can interchange Denver and LA, and then it gets a little more tricky after that. I think Memphis is at 5, the 6 seed, Golden State, Minnesota, or the Clippers. Just kind of interchange with that, obviously, and the 8 seed. But just kind of looking at what has happened the last 2 weeks while the Wolves have went on this 1-3 skid. Golden State went to Miami last night and got their tails kicked, which was fine. I was fortunate enough not to bet on Jimmy Butler because I had a hunch that he was going to go back there and tank, which was great. Wanted Golden State to lose anyways because we're fighting for our playoff lives. I will say this. One of the good things is Sacramento lost last night. Sacramento, I believe, is 5 games back from us. So worst case scenario for the Wolves, and let's just throw it out there. Brian don't want to talk about play-in, but we got 10 games left. If that is, 10 games left. Right now, the Wolves, worst case scenario, are going to get that 8 seed, which assures them of 2 play-in games, worst case scenario. So don't want to get into the matchups necessarily, but let's just talk about the West in general. We talked about the Wolves. What are you seeing from some of these teams as we go through the last 3 weeks in the stretch run for playoff positioning? Mr. Steve.
Yeah, I think the shine on Jimmy Butler is starting to come off now in Golden State. I think he's, the honeymoon's over, right? We're going to see it start to, Jimmy's going to Jimmy, right? That's what he's going to be him. He's going to do, this is kind of what, when the trade happened, it's like, I don't see him getting him over the top, right? So the honeymoon's over. We're seeing the shine come off. They're coming back down to where they should be. Unfortunate that the Timberwolves haven't capitalized on it. When we got 2 games against the Pelicans and 2 games against the Pacers, we probably should have gone 3-1 and been up a game and a half on the Warriors right now. But yeah, so Golden State, it's really in the Wolves' hands about being able to overtake them. Memphis, Denver, LA, they're going to bounce back and forth as far as, who's got what. Houston's got 2-game lead on Denver right now. So I don't think that, I don't, the games are the games, right? In Denver, they've been trying to hold serve without Jokic, but, I see it that, the 3 through 7, I think 3 through 8 here is really going to be, the 6 of one, half a dozen of the other for a little bit here. But I think the final seeding is probably going to come down to these last 5 games as far as the 4 through 8. I think the last 5 games are really going to determine that. So we'll see what happens. But Memphis is holding serve. They're gonna win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and kind of ride out the rest of the season that way. So I don't see them moving much in the standings. Denver, we'll see what they do if Jokic comes back and they go on the run, or if they're just happy that they're in the playoffs and they don't think they can fall out. So that's kind of my 2 cents. It's just going to be, yin and yang, who shows up at the end of the season here, as far as the seeding. But the last 5 games is going to determine all of it.
So, I mean, it looks like the 1 through the 8th season, granted, the 7th and the 8th got to play in, and they got to play other teams to get in. But I want to talk, Brett, I'm going to mix this up for you. I want to talk about what looks to be the candidates for the 9th and 10th, who obviously play each other and then play the loser of the 7-8 battle. So right now, it looks like Sacramento is firmly entrenched in that 9 seed, probably not going to move far from there. And then you have Phoenix, Dallas, and even Portland to a lesser extent. And I mean, I don't think San Antonio's officially eliminated, but it behooves them not to get into the play-in. But between Sacramento, Phoenix, and the Mavs, what do you think about those 9-10 matchups? And do any of those 3 teams pose a threat to the teams ahead of them, like the Timberwolves, the Warriors, the Clippers?
Yeah, so mathematically, there's almost no way that they're going to catch 7 and 8, right? I think.
Correct. I think Sacramento is like five plus games back with 10 to go. I mean, it'd take a monumental collapse. Yeah.
So Clippers, Wolves, Warriors will be 7 and 8, one of those 2. And then, you would love to sit here and say we've got Phoenix's number. You would love to say it's Dallas sans Kyrie, but I just watched us lose to a G League indie team. I know that playoff and play-in vibes are different commitment levels. I would hope that playoff Ant shows up to a play-in game if need be. I'm pretty confident in our ability to handle LA, whether it's here or on the road. I don't think the Intuit Dome is the prime Staples Center. I don't think that's the LA gauntlet that we have come to know.
Even with the wall?
Yeah, the wall, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. The wall. I don't know. The Clippers just don't scare me. That's not to say that they could clip us, no pun intended. But I don't know. I hate to just be completely non-committal again, but I in that crop, I think we are the best team in the Clippers. I still think we're better than the Warriors. I also want to backtrack to and admit that I'm eating a little bit of crow after the trade deadline when I said Jimmy Butler's absolutely a net negative for the Warriors. Eating a little bit of crow there. So I hope what Steve said about the honeymoon coming to an end gives me a little bit of relief on that take. Either way, I think we can beat the Warriors in 7. We own quality wins over pretty much everybody 1 through 8, right? Including OKC. We've beaten everyone convincingly. It's just what Wolves will show up. Right, the best version of us can absolutely go 7 games and take it from anybody. They just got to focus up. That's really and pull the right levers. The right look against the Clippers might be a different look against the Nuggets, right? Finchy might need to reach into the bag a little bit and plug in some of the younger guys. I don't know. Just hopefully he's not too stubborn about those things. We just talked about lineups, so don't want to go too far back into that. But it's going to come down to really a lot of variables. What kind of energy the boys bring, and how willing to get creative will Finchy be depending on the opponent, because there's about 8 or 9 different teams that we might have to run into early on in the playoffs. It's really just a wild card, but I feel good about our chances. If we are able to get in, just get that 6 man and just get those extra few days of rest and a chance to study up on your opponent more than anything. So in a nutshell, I feel okay. You just, as a Wolves fan, you got to be worried though about, not worried, just a little cautiously aware of some of our habits with lesser teams, and hopefully we don't fall into that come play in time if we're there.
No,
So
no doubt, no doubt. And I mean, the added rest of, not being in the plane and getting those extra 5, 6 days off is definitely going to impact a team at the end of the season. Ramon,
especially if you're going to Denver with that altitude,
yeah,
you want a couple days to get ready for that. You don't want to go
yeah, no, absolutely. Especially
Sunday into Tuesday,
say you're the
fresh off the
sixth seed
plane.
and you got to go to Denver.
Yeah, no time to adjust. Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's dicey.
Ramon, I think everybody here would agree that OKC has been a cut above the rest in the West this year.
Yep.
Definitely playing good. I know the Wolves have played them very well too, so a lot of Wolves fans are necessarily scared of them. Not talking necessarily from uh, who the Wolves are going to play in the playoffs perspective, but outside of OKC, who do you think in the West is the most dangerous team? Because we talked earlier, like that 2 through 5 is kind of interchangeable. They're all within a couple of games from each other. But who do you think is the biggest threat to OKC as the top dog in the West?
Man, I you guys are going to call me crazy. I'm putting on my tinfoil hat. I have to say that I feel like the Timberwolves are the team that can take them out. I think they've proven it on the court this season during the regular season. And it's just a matter, as Brett said, it's just a matter of which team shows up. I mean, I just like looking at Houston, they're hard nosed, they're tough, but I just don't know if they're experienced enough to really go all the way with OKC. Denver just doesn't have the depth, it seems. Memphis, I mean, I heard Desmond Bain was shoving a teammate, so who knows when they're going to go off the rails. And then the Lakers, I mean, that they're a wild card. Golden State, I think they're just too old. I just don't think they'll have the foot speed to hang with the with OKC. I I'm being a total homer. I know it, but I feel like the Timberwolves are a legit threat, maybe the most legit threat to OKC in the Western Conference. But again, are they going to make it? Who knows? Looking at the Wolves have 9 games left, and it's not a whole lot of Western Conference foes. I mean, they have Phoenix, they have Denver,
Yep.
Memphis, and then in Utah, but they're toast. So you just don't know what's going to happen with this team, and they could lose several of those games and then be stuck at the 8th spot, and who knows what happens in the play-in. But I do think if they can turn this around, finish strong, I think they can. They're a legit threat to anybody in the Western Conference. And again, I know I might sound like a total homer, but I feel that way. That's how I feel.
All right. I appreciate it. Brian.
I am like my big thing about all this.
You didn't even let me ask the question.
It's about chicken wings. I don't want to hear it.
No, it's not about chicken wings.
All right.
So who do you think out of all the opposing teams and potential opponents for the Wolves in the first round, which one player from an opposing team scares you the most as far as their matchup against the Wolves?
Luca. I mean, that's the one guy that terrifies me out there. I mean, everybody's pouring dirt on them Lakers, but that's the one team I wouldn't want to face. The team I want the Wolves to face is somebody that's better than them. A higher seeded team. I mean, if we play in a play-in game or as a 6 or 7 seed and we are favored in a matchup, the way our Wolves go, that's not good. I mean, that gives indigestion. It just makes your peeing patterns bad. The one thing I would love to avoid the play-in, but I want to play somebody better. OKC, bring that shit. Bring it. Houston, bring that. The Lakers, bring it. I just don't want to have kind of a matchup where we look like the favorites because, as Brett said earlier, hey, the games we're supposed to win, we don't win. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. But who knows what's going to happen? We just got to wait and find out.
No, and I like the Luca reference because who from this crew will forget the Western Conference Finals last year where he tore all of
I
our.
don't want to see that guy at all.
No, and as much as I can't stand him, I respect his game, and he has been a Wolves killer.
Yeah.
But
I'd rather see stay.
yeah, we shall see. So I mean, we got 3 weeks left in the season. Now I'm just going to do some word association. What we need out of these players in the next couple of weeks to really solidify our playoff positioning. I'm going to go with what I feel are five most important players. God bless you, Mike Conley. I know you're in the starting lineup, but to me, there's five players that are key to this stretch run of the season as well as the playoffs, and I assigned one to each of you. So, Steve, I'm going to start out with you. Rudy Gobert. What do we need from Rudy in the next few weeks?
Rudy needs to do two things. One, dunk the damn ball. Stop trying to do these little where he's like, oh, I don't want to break the rim. Slam it home. You're within 8 feet of that. You should be an automatic dunk. It shouldn't even be a question. I don't know how many times I've seen him do this stupid, like, try to lay it in and stuff. Rudy, that's not your game. Just slam it down through the hoop. Don't mess around. Body and bully through somebody. And the other thing is the rebounds, right? He's got to rebound. When we are rebounding and getting on the glass, we are a much different team. When we start losing focus and energy is when we're just jacking up threes and like you look, the ball's not even halfway up and through the air and like there's not a Timberwolf in the picture, right? The camera follows the ball and like there's nobody there. And that's when these other teams go on these runs and start killing us. So Rudy's got to do two things. One, dunk the ball. Don't mess around. Get the fouls. Get the calls. Go to the line. He's been a much better, much improved free throw shooter over this last season than he was last year. So he's got to just dunk it. Stop screwing around, dunk it, and then you've got to own the boards. You're huge. You're tall. Stop messing around. Don't let these guys push you around. You've got to be physical, and you've got to attack the glass. He's got to be Mr. Windex. He's got to be cleaning up the glass.
All right, Brett. Julius Randle.
Oh God!
Oh,
Yeah,
you got
man.
Ride the pine.
Just yeah, right. Yeah, embracing a six-man role. No, dude, just put some zip on those passes. Like I've said before, I think that he's capable of being what I refer to as a Kyle Anderson on steroids. And Kyle Anderson did some good things for the squad. You know, it's good to have a big, strong, tall playmaker that can kick it out, and he's whipping passes in midair. It's cool. Like there is a formula to Julius working with this offense. Here's just this kind of just weird, just low energy passing the last handful of games. But we just got to cut that out and put some zip on the ball and continue to find your teammates. When it's not about Julius getting his, when it's not about him getting his 30 bucket or pad stats on a bad team, which I think is I think that's a situation he'd be happier in. That's what we won't go down that road right now. But either way, when Julius was dialed into playmaking, dishing the ball, he was a big part of the ball movement in that 8-game winning streak. I have to give that to him. I cannot take that away. So dial back into that incredible playmaker and passer that we saw for the last 8 games and try to forget about whatever the hell that was against Indiana when you're throwing lame duck interceptions every time down the if you can tap into that, we'll be all right.
Like Christian Ponder. I was so happy to pick that name for you, Brett, because I knew it was going to be gold, and it was. All right. Razor. 2 words. Naz Reid.
Oh gosh, Nas. I think just get consistent. I feel like he's just been very up and down recently. It looks like he dropped 20 in the last game against Indiana in a loss, unfortunately, but didn't rebound a whole lot. It looks like he had 3 boards. I'd say just get consistent. His defensive effort seems to have diminished lately. Doesn't look like he's really getting low in his stance. Looks like he's falling asleep. He fell asleep several times guarding Obi Toppin in that bad loss against the G League Indiana team. So I just want to see him continue to be aggressive, but then also to stay disciplined defensively with his focus, getting down in his stance, and get involved on the glass. And we talked about Julius Randle, and he's kind of taken a bit of a step back, and he's not rebounding a whole lot either. But with him struggling a little bit, we really, really need Nas to get it going and hit open shots, open up the floor for Ant, because I think Ant hasn't been shooting that well from three lately either. So get consistent.
Brian, Dante DiVincenzo.
Oh, three Vincenzo. I love the guy. I love the guy. Uh, he's gonna probably be getting majority of the point guard minutes. Minnesota Mike's probably gonna be coming in, giving you 18 to 25 minutes a game. That's the guy that this team's gonna need down the stretch here. And I mean, he's balling. I mean, he's active on the boards. He's playing great defense. Granted, he's not going to shoot 7 for 8 from 3-pointer every game, but I'll tell you that guy's going to be a cog. That's going to be a cog. Let's go.
Yeah, it'd be great if they could all get firing on all cylinders at the same time.
Right.
And I will finish it up with the obvious one, Anthony Edwards. I just got a couple of things for Ant. We know that, and I think it led to his, was it 1 for 11 3-point shooting the other day. Hopefully his hands healing, but late in games, man, the turnovers, the sloppy turnovers, the dribbles off the legs, and I mean,
The step back threes too. That's what's killing.
yes. And when Ant plays downhill, and you guys will see it if he's hitting his
Right.
threes, but if he's not hitting them and he starts playing downhill, it doesn't matter if his shot's on or off. I mean, he's getting more fouls called than he used to. I mean, he ain't SGA, but who the hell is? Where you breathe on him and he gets the foul call. But
That
um,
fucker.
yeah, but your MVP, which and he's now, luckily for Embiid has been out most of the season because now I think SGA, regardless of how great of a talent he is, which he is, I think we can all agree, is starting to become the most despised player in the league. Simply not because of anything of his own doing per se, although he likes to flop. He hasn't quite graduated to the LeBron James school of flopping yet, but he's definitely pre-law. But anyways. Other thing from Ant that I and a lot of other people noticed the last few games, get Luka's bracelet back on, man. I don't know what happened to that kid's bracelet, but he has not been wearing that the last 2 or 3 games. Maybe that's accounting for his lackluster play. But here's the one thing I will close with on Ant. In the 3 seasons, this is season number 5, so it'll be season number 4 of making the playoffs. He has shown up playoff time. Now, granted, the Western Conference Finals, I think he was a little winded. The team as a whole didn't play that great, but Ant has shown up in the playoffs year after year. So I think he's got another level. He lives for those moments. He gets up for those games. It's not like Utah on a Wednesday night. So I think he'll be fine there, but definitely need Ant to be a little better with the decision making. I will also give him credit. It seems like ever since the suspension, he realizes he's got to back off from barking and clapping at the officials, and he has not received a T since that suspension because with the stretch run here and the importance of pretty much every game going forward, whether or not we're in whether if we want to get out of that play-in, we got to win these games, and we need him on the court. If he gets 2 more over the next 9-10 games, he'll miss another game, and we can't afford that. So with that, we will wrap up this week's edition of Hungry Like the Wolves. I appreciate it, gentlemen. We had a lot to discuss through a couple of nuances out tonight, which I liked. I appreciated your answers. So we will see you all again next week. Go Wolves. Thanks, guys.